Hi, I'm Andrew Spieler,
And I'm Mary Hope Rennie.
and you're watching or listening to Behind the Sign, real stories from real estate.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Behind the Signs. Today we have three guests. I know we have someone that looks very familiar, but he is our guest. This is Andrew Spieler, who is usually my co-host, but he is sitting in the seat of a guest. And we have Kristi Whitten and we have Greg McCarthy. And these are two of our agents who have worked very closely with Andrew in his work. And so I'd like to introduce each of you and find out why you've gotten into real estate, why you're doing it, and I would say kind of what has kept you in real estate. So, Greg, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I've been in real estate since 1999. I got into it because I had a friend that was flipping homes, and I just thought that seemed like something I would be interested in doing, even though I can't even screw in a light bulb. But
Interesting.
yeah, so
I didn't know that about you.
yeah, that I can't screw in a light bulb.
Yes, I was wondering.
Yeah.
That was my question. Which
Metaphorically.
part?
Yeah. So that's how I got into real estate. What do I like about being in real estate?
Why have you stayed in it?
I think just the entrepreneurial thing, ever since, I can remember, I've probably had one or two real jobs, when I say real jobs, I mean employed by other people in my life. So I like the entrepreneurial part. I also love the idea that I remember 100 years ago at one of those jobs, I was going up for a promotion and I didn't get it. And I didn't like the idea that somebody else could determine whether or not I was going to succeed. And that is one of the things I've really enjoyed about real estate, is that it's not up to anyone else other than my ability to produce business.
I always think too, it's your decision if you want to raise.
Yeah.
I always tell people, right? If you want to raise, job, a job, you have to go show your performance and present it. Maybe you'll get a 3 to 5% raise. Here, you work a little harder, and it directly affects,
Yeah.
So
Most
Or a little
definitely.
smarter.
Yeah.
what?
I said, or a little smarter.
Oh, you're a little smart, right? Work harder or smarter? Absolutely, absolutely. So, Kristi, why don't you tell us a little bit about how, when, why you got into real estate, and why are you still in it?
So, I was in the restaurant business forever. Kind of same thing like Greg. I just was kind of tired of working for other people and said, this looks like fun. I had never bought or sold a house in my life when I got into real estate, which was probably a blessing because I didn't actually know what I was doing.
What you were getting yourself
Right.
into?
Exactly. And I really just stayed in it because you're never bored. You might get frustrated, but you're never bored. No two transactions are the same. And you're always, if you're doing it right, you're always helping people, which is a big deal to me. So, and I remember reading one time, probably in a book that Bill Weidecker gave me, but it said two things. It said, do you want to sign the front of the check or the back of a check? And I want to sign the front of the check. And it said job stands for just over broke. So as long as you're working for somebody else, they're just going to keep you just over broke, but you're never going to get all the way to where your potential could technically take you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, then I'm going to do this on my own.
That's really neat, and I definitely want to get back to this on the podcast because you're both flipping investments, entrepreneur, and we haven't brought this up on all the podcasts, like where real estate can take you in your career. It's not just buying and selling. So let's get back to that, but let's get to our main guest here, Andrew Spieler.
Thank you for having me. This is so good to be here. I've never been on a podcast before.
I've been trying to get you,
I know.
call you,
I've
and
been booked.
contacting you.
Every Tuesday at 2, I'm on another podcast, so that's the problem.
I've been trying to call, and your people haven't responded
That's
to me.
right.
So
Yeah.
thanks for
Okay.
joining us
Yeah.
again. So tell us a little bit about you. I know we've done a whole podcast before, but give me a snippet of how you got into the real estate world
Yeah.
and what you're doing now.
Okay, so the Cliff Notes version is I moved here right before COVID hit. I got twins that were delivered at the end of COVID year. I could not fly back to LA where I had a whole career in the entertainment industry. So I was like, what can I do local? that is not going to have me interact with people and bring COVID home to 2 newborn babies or my daughter who was 2 at the time. And I looked at what I had, and I had a camera and I had some other equipment, and I said, listing media, that sounds pretty good. I can go into empty homes and shoot photos and deliver them for people. So that got me into a hyper local real estate headspace.
Mhm.
And it was 2022 where I was really kind of gaining traction on the listing media side. But I had a lot of experiences with agents where I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's how agents should actually be doing things. So I took the licensing course and decided, okay, well, let's get licensed. And then I went and toured a whole bunch of different brokerages, and then I ended up here with Kristi on the Whitten team at end of 2022. And then ever since then, it's just been sort of this like incredible wild journey of like real estate and media and the studio and potentially real estate again. So it's like I find myself sort of as this bridge between real estate and capturing media and marketing for real estate. And now I've got, I mean, just in the last 12 hours, I was telling them I have like a ton of orders coming in because the spring market is here, and it's like
Welcome.
hitting me in the face. So it's exciting. But my business on the real estate side, the real estate media side has, it last year doubled from the year before. And this year it's looking to double or triple from last year.
That's great.
And it's exciting, but I'm also trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to handle all that.
Yeah.
So,
How to leverage.
yeah.
So you said it doubled last year and it doubled this year.
Mhm.
What would you say is the main cause? There's time, but what do you think?
It's easy. So this is something I carried with me out in LA and still holds true here. Trust is more important than talent.
Okay,
And
tell me more.
well, you can't access somebody's talent if you can't trust them, right?
Mm.
So I might be the best photographer in the world, but if you can't trust me to show up on time, execute, and then deliver the next day, doesn't matter how great my photos are, right? So it's the same thing with me and the agents. It's about the communication and trust and forming relationships to sort of be adaptable to the situation. Because as you guys just said, no 2 deals are the same, no 2 homes are the same. Each house needs a different set of things for marketing, and stuff happens, you know? So being a partner in that process versus just sort of a provider of, X product is why I do it. So
Well, one of the reasons we started this podcast was to show all the avenues of real estate. And this is exactly, Andrew, you jumped into real estate, got your license, and said, I want to be in this world, but not opening doors.
Right.
Right.
For now.
Which for now, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
If this gets too busy, you're going to quit that
I'll see. Yeah.
because it's working so well. You probably should do something different.
Exactly. Yeah. I should pivot now. Yeah. That's it.
Now that it's successful, I should quit it
Right.
and do something different.
Yep.
No, but I think part of that is those partnerships with all the people in real estate. So, Greg, why do you work with Andrew? Hopefully, it coincides with what he kind of said. Yes, just
Yeah.
But
Tell us the truth.
yeah,
Yeah.
tell us the real ugly truth.
Well, Andrew paid me before I came.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think with any partnership in real estate, it is an arm of who you are, right? With whatever you do. So why, Andrew, what do you see in that? And why is real estate photography important to your business?
Well, first of all, Andrew does an incredible job.
So there's some talent there?
There-
Made it
there-
sound like
there-
you didn't
there is a lot
talent.
of talent. I mean, he is literally the best photographer, videographer that we've ever worked with. I really like him as a person. Like he said, the trust part is really important. We're opening a door a lot of times and just letting Andrew do his thing in a home for a couple hours. And not only that, but the trust that we have with our clients is dependent whether or not he shows up on time,
Yeah.
whether he does everything that we had planned on doing and how well he does it. So those are a lot of the reason. And because I just see he's obviously investing a lot of time in growing his business, and offering more as time goes on. So those are some of the reasons why I continue to work with him.
That's great. What about you, Kristi?
Yeah. So I think I was spoiled because Andrew was doing photos when he first started on my team
Oh,
as
yeah.
an agent. And so,
You were smart.
yeah, I got spoiled really quickly. And then it was like, well, there's no turning back now. But yeah, so we had built kind of that trust and that relationship in working together. And it was just a seamless kind of
Mm.
transition for me to just continue using him doing the photography, um, videos, photography, floor plans, like all of it. And I think, exactly what Greg said, there's just it's so important for us to be able to trust the people that we're working with because it's a reflection on us.
Mhm.
So if I say to a seller, hey, we're going to be there at 2, but we're not there, or we're running late, or something like that, it's a reflection on us.
Yep.
Andrew is always on time. He's always prepared. He's always ready for whatever you need done. And he does it in a very timely manner. And then, the next day you're going to get those photos back. I don't know about you, but I send the link of all of the photos to my clients like the second Andrew sends them to me because I'm always so excited. And they're always in awe because the quality
Mm.
is unmatched. There's nobody else that I've ever worked with in the business that sends me photos that look better than Andrew's.
And just to
So.
piggyback on something Kristi was saying too, it's obvious that Andrew takes time when he does it. I've worked with other really good photographers, even, probably great, but it doesn't, the time that they put in to do what they do, it seems like when Andrew does it, it's a different product. It looks different.
It's
Mm.
not
It
as
look-
rushed.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I
exactly.
agree with that.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective, Andrew, now that they just praised you, and
I know. I
Well-
just took a bath and praise here. I got to go shower. No,
what
thank-
do you think? What do you think is the most important when you walk into a home?
Mhm.
What are you looking for? What are you looking to accomplish? What is your priority?
I mean, first and foremost, it's establishing sort of a temperature check on the agent and the client,
Mm.
right? Like when I come in, it's about, okay, is the client home, first of all? Have they been up for the last 3 days cleaning and they're just like, a ball of nerves and they're, wondering what they need to do before I start, and try to put them at ease, and then, help the agent in that process, and just kind of, at the end of the day, be a team player given whatever the variables are, to try to just make the shoot go as smoothly as possible, right?
Mhm.
Because like with anything, whether you're on a big, large shoot or you're on a small shoot doing, just a listing meeting, at the end of the day, it's a collaborative effort, and there's always going to be something that's going to be not ideal. And so you just kind of figure out what that is, and then you just kind of work out and around it to do the best you can. And I prefer working with agents who, like what you guys were just saying, understand the value of not rushing through the process. Because there are agents out there who also will just want to kind of come in, just bim, bam, pictures done, out the door, on to the next. And there I have a volume mindset. I don't have a volume mindset, right? I probably could be doing more work if I had a volume mindset, but to me, I'd rather come in and actually take the time, frame the photo right, measure twice and cut once. And because the product is better at the end of the day doing that. So that's the first thing I look for. And then I go around and I make sure all the windows are open and the lights are on. There's no.
I would disagree though about the volume part because of how good of a job you're doing. As you were saying, the business has grown, it's doubled.
Yeah.
It's
It's
true.
doubled.
Yep.
So
I think
by
that's what's
doing a
getting-
great job,
Yeah,
it is becoming more of a volume
Yep.
because of the
it's
quality.
true. Yeah, and then yes, yeah.
The perpetual issue
it's
of
about-
leverage.
Andrew is actually working.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the kind of thing too, where like when I come in, I'll kind of say, if I can tell that maybe the house is in a little worse for wear, I kind of say, so what do we want to highlight, at the property?
Yeah.
Or, like, what is sort of the marketing headspace that you're in for the property? Because ideally, I'd
Absolutely.
love for the agent to sort of say, well, I know that this is an X kind of house and we're putting it on next week. And, this is the approach we're taking, and actually have some forethought in the planning. Because I do show up sometimes and some people are just kind of like, yeah, whatever you want. And in one hand, I've earned that trust with a lot of clients, and they have that shorthand, and I get it. But if they're like a new client and they have no input and no communication to me, then that's not my ideal client, because I want to make sure that they are feeling like a part of this process and care
Mm.
about the sale of the home,
Well, that got me thinking, and maybe Kristi, both of you, Kristi and Greg, you've been in the business a few years. How many years, Kristi? When did you start?
Almost 20.
Almost 20. Okay. And yours is 99. I don't want to count. At least,
That's all right. I don't.
but I was born, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
When we were talking to
I
Bill and
understand.
Alan, we were calculating
Yeah.
this a little differently. But we're shifting a little bit in our market. We used to be, it really didn't matter if people used their iPhone. It didn't matter. You would have 20 offers. It didn't matter what the marketing looked like. It did matter, of course, for what people saw of you.
It wasn't instrumental in getting the home sold.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think there are a lot of agents that are now realizing they don't have that skill set of looking at a home from a marketing perspective. Exactly what Andrew said is, okay, what is your take on this property? How are you going to market it? What are you going to emphasize? So, Kristi, from your experience, when you're walking into a home, what are the things you're thinking of? Because you have been in markets that it was not
Yeah,
a
we used to
seller's
sign
market.
18-month listing agreements. We don't have to do that
And a
anymore.
free shot at sales in
Yeah, right.
between.
So I think one of the biggest assets of walking through the property with the actual homeowner is asking them, why did you buy this house? What
Mhm.
stands out to you? And if you had anything to change about the house, what would you change?
That's a great question.
Because we're not going to focus on that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because somebody else is probably going to want to change it too.
Yep.
Or if it's changeable, we'll change it, right? But a lot of times it's the layout of the house or it's something like that, right? And that gives you a really good kind of starting point to drive what is going to be focused on with, we stage every property before we even have Andrew come in. So staging it, you're going to make sure that you're highlighting those areas that stood out to the homeowner, right? Because the next homeowner's probably going to like those same features. And then Andrew can come in and really focus on those things. So it is important. And then it is important to know why that person bought the house. If for some reason it's a vacant house, then yeah, you look at it through different eyes and you say, okay, what can we do with this? And sometimes it's a funky layout or, the living room's narrow and awkward or right. There's always those
Yeah.
little things. And that's where having those allied resources and that team come together where you bring in your stager and you bring in your photographer and Andrew can look at it from this angle and that angle and get the whole picture is really important. And so we've done professional photography basically throughout just because it is a reflection on us. Even if we don't necessarily, like you said,
Oh,
Greg,
yeah.
need it to sell the property, right?
Absolutely.
The
Your
property's
brand.
going to sell.
Yeah.
It's right. It's my brand. It's what we do. And we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the client. And that's the right thing for the client, in my opinion, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So being able to give a little bit of direction or a little bit of, hey, this is what I was thinking. And then Andrew can run with it is huge. And it, I think, helps you get through the property
Mhm.
and kind of put those eyes on.
Yep. Oh yeah. Because I mean, like when I'm going through a property, and like you said, there's some homes where they might be a little more circuitous or there's more rooms, and so like layout is hard to define in photos, and so every time I'm lining up a frame, I'm going information or feel, right? Like which is this giving me? Is it a feel of the home, or should I know that this connects to these bedrooms, right? So it's like you have to kind of wade through because you're right. Like if you're in a home that's got like narrow rooms too, like long narrow rooms, it's really hard to photograph and make it look good, so you got to kind of get clever with it. And if the agent sort of already identified some of those, bottlenecks and pinch points in the house, helps me because then I'm not feeling like, oh, what are we going to do here? It's sort of a known thing. So
Well, you hit on something I was going to ask you, Greg, that are you looking for functionality or feel? We are in a business of people purchasing probably their largest investment yet. First of all, they're usually looking at a home for about 15 minutes and it's a feeling, yet it's a huge financial investment. So when you're looking at selling a home, where is that balance and how do you highlight it? And,
Yeah, just like you said, I think I often share with people, we're going to win this battle in the first couple minutes.
Mm.
Like, I love when I show up at somebody's house and they just show me how they organize their garage. I'm like, that's definitely not what
That's not going
by
to
the time they get to the kitchen and living room,
They've
they're just
decided.
they've decided they're just deciding whether or not they're going to put an offer.
So you can bring them right in through the garage.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So there is priorities,
Yes.
so I think that's what we talk about. So what are they going to see when they initially come in? And also, I try to get a vibe for the person as an individual. How much effort are they going to put in? Because that is another thing too. You sometimes have individuals who, if we always offer the staging as well,
Yeah.
the consultation. It's just a question of how far will
They
people
Will they
take it
actually
with
do
it.
Yes.
And so
Without tossing all their stuff.
yeah,
Starting
most
new.
most
Yeah.
definitely. And just to piggyback on something Kristi was saying earlier, and to the quality point, we've got a listing. I remember one time specifically on Silver Street in Manchester, where when we started to go over what the marketing was, he already knew it because he researched what we do online. He knew about the Matterport tours
Yes.
that Andrew does. He knew about the floor plans, the quality of the pictures. So
Well, and that's to me like the best part of the job is when other agents tell me that like they just got a listing because they were so impressed by like their marketing and like what they do for the listings. So then I'm like, great, the symbiotic relationship is
It
very
works.
fulfilling.
Well, and I think so many times we don't make that connection right away, but the more we do those things and do it at a high level and high quality, even when it's not necessary, like you said, right? Not everybody was putting that effort in.
it's a
Crazy.
shame that people say that though. It was always necessary.
It always.
I don't really care. It's the difference between getting them a couple extra percent. I mean, first of all, we're going to sell the house online, and the pictures and how it's presented online does that. So the more people you can get in, inevitably helps to get them more. So I think it's a misnomer that
Absolutely.
it's just people got lazy.
They got lazy, and the feel of the public, they thought, well, first of all, they thought they could do it on their own. They felt, right? All these feelings because of what they observed, but you are exactly right. That doesn't mean that they got the best offers, the top price, the negotiation, like all of that is involved. And it's fascinating that, just like you said, the first few minutes of walking in the house, but even before that, they're making their decision, even if they're going to walk into that house because of what Andrew
Oh,
does.
yeah, you got to sell it online first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the
In a 1D format.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
you're looking at a
That-
photo, and so I say that to people all the time. Listen, I understand that when I walk into the kitchen, that, toaster on the counter makes sense. But in the photo, your neighbor is going, oh, what kind of toaster do they have? So get rid of it for the
Yeah.
picture. You can put it back out after we've got the pictures
Yeah.
done. But for right now, let's take it off the counter. Let's get all the distractions out of the photos because you're selling this house in 1 day.
Yes.
Well, I say you don't want to take an I Spy book picture.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of like my
That's
barometer of things because you're just going to get distracted with all these little pieces and things and miss the bigger picture, which is the room,
Yes.
and like even, I've seen a lot of photos too. And maybe this is part of what got me into this was I saw a lot of photos and from just a creative perspective, I would look at them and I would go, I can't tell the difference between this house and that house. And they're two different homes, right? And so to me, there's sort of a bit of a bleaching that happens with real estate photography where it's sort of cookie cutter and everything is bright and perfect and almost looks fake and the windows are super sharp and detailed. And as soon as you do that, not only do you look at it and go, it doesn't feel real, right? But it also takes your attention away from the space because you're looking out the window now instead of at the
The
living room,
house.
and there is something to be said for like how your eye will go to the brightest spot in a frame. And so if you've got a shiny toaster on the counter, right, reflecting light or something, yeah, you want to yank it. So it's like these little details that all kind of add up to a more,
For cords.
cords are,
Nothing makes me crazier.
yeah, cords
We agonize over this. Like, you want the lamps on,
Yes.
Mhm.
but you don't want to
So-
see, can we just have battery operated, please?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Or the trash can.
Yeah.
Trash can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's
The
get
kitchen
those.
cat trash
Yeah.
can that's not.
Knickknacks. Yeah.
There's been
Yeah.
several times where you've done your magic and gotten cords out of
Yeah.
the pictures for me.
And that's-
Or we literally just
take.
hide
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean? But
And that's something too, where it's like the industry of media in general, but specifically as it relates to photography with AI is a huge leap forward in the last 2 years. And so knowing where it's useful and knowing where it's sort of crossing a line
Yeah.
is also something I have to look at on a case by case basis every time I'm editing, and kind of be like,
How much
well,
can I edit?
yeah, because like I can take out that cable, but if I do it, it's going to kind of make the wall plate look a little wonky. And if the wall plate looks too wonky, then I can't really do it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like these little give and
Or
takes.
can I
all over the
clean the
place.
walls enough that they
Right.
don't have the splatter on it? Well, they're
Yep.
so actually that leads to a question of where do you see media in general for real estate going in the next few years? Because it's moving really fast.
It is. And
And I know that's a big question.
well, it's
Loaded
it's an
question.
important one though,
Yeah.
because there is a big sort of change coming with AI and all these new technologies. And, you're still going to need a person to go into the home for capture, but the capture devices are going to change. And what's going to happen is, Matterport obviously go in with a 360 camera, you capture the space, it makes the 3D dollhouse, and you can kind of click through and walk through. The next wave is going to be sort of these incredibly highly dense cameras that I think will go in and will record things in sort of the stereoscopic, almost 3D type approach, not unlike how the floor plans work today with LiDAR sensors and stuff. But what it's going to do is it's going to allow somebody from California to literally be in the home here in New Hampshire, right? They're going to be able to put on their goggles or do whatever and actually be in the space in a way that they've never
Feel it.
been in before, right? So,
Exciting.
right. And on top of that now, like I can already go in and scan a whole house and make a video out of it with reskin textures, right? So you can see what it would look like with different cabinets or with different furniture or whatever, right? So it's going to be giving power to the buyer more so because they're going to want to come in and, start tooling around being like, well, what if the TV was over here? And what if this, right? Like there's going to be this interactivity with the capture that's going to be the next wave, if you will, I think.
Oh
So,
man.
yeah.
I'm going to start with Andrew. What is your craziest experience in real estate or something that you have come upon?
Well, I don't know if we can beat Joe's story from last week.
Yeah, no.
That was heavy, but
He found a body.
yeah, during an inspection.
oh God.
There was one time where I was going in and it was, tenant occupied property. They knew we were coming, but we showed up and we went in and it was one of these units where it was like, you kind of didn't know where the last one ended and this one began kind of thing. And so we were walking through the space and there were kind of like cats walking around everywhere. And we were yelling to kind of let the home or the tenant know we were coming into the house. And so we're like, hello, real estate agent, photographer, da, da, da. No answer. So we were like, okay, well, maybe they're just not here. And so we just kind of walked around quietly. And then I went into a room and the guy was in his bed asleep with a CPAP machine on, out cold.
So literally didn't hear you.
You literally didn't hear us screaming and, calling and everything. And I'm in there and the agent's like, and I'm like, and she's like, take the picture. And I'm like, okay, all right.
That's really good.
So I went into the room with this guy sleeping and took a photo and I took him out in post, obviously. But I was just sort of like, if this guy wakes up, he also had guns all around his bed. So I was like,
if I woke up to somebody in my room,
Taking a photo of
there's
you.
literally a gun in my nightstand, and you probably would have.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was just like, okay, definitely,
That would have been bad.
yeah. And other than that, it's just, sometimes I go on like really early morning shoots that are like deep in the woods and I'm just like by myself and it's like the beginning of a horror film. And I'm like, all right, what bear is going to come out at me, as I'm unlocking them? Because, I'm up there and it's like, there's no cell service, right?
Nope.
And there's
So-
nobody around for like miles. And I'm just like, all right. So
Well, you're alive to tell of it.
yeah.
So I guess
Yes.
you
Yep.
did well.
It would make a good movie. Let's
Well-
put it that way.
Any great experiences you've had in real estate?
I mean, this is just one of any. This was just like 3 weeks ago. Like,
Oh.
Yeah, but last week too, they were like, it was 2 weeks ago.
yeah, this was just 3 weeks ago. Me and Kyle Valier went into a property that was condemned, and it was
I saw you right after
yeah,
it happened.
it was a 6-unit building with 2 commercial spots also. And Kyle led the way through the window because I kept dry heaving the whole time. I guess the guy had passed in the house and he was a hoarder, and the place had been vacant over the winter. So there was water. Like it was just, it was condemned by the city.
Yeah.
So he led the way. And because I kept dry heaving, I almost made him throw up. So the both of us are standing, no lights on in this place. So that was what kind
Did
of
you end
fun.
up buying that place?
He did. Yeah, we're closing tomorrow.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
So
It gets to a point where you
kind of,
really gotta work at it to scare a real estate agent,
yeah, well, that's,
right? Like we don't scare easy anymore.
well, you see potential in that because you know there's not, the lines out the door aren't going to happen.
No. No.
That one.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. What about you, Kristi? Any great stories?
Well, I used to run, I have two funny ones actually. So I used to run foreclosure tours. So we had like a 15-passenger van that we would fill 3 times a week, and they would get a clipboard with the properties that we were going to go see that day. And they got 15 minutes at each property. And then we went back to the office and
Put offers in?
put offers in. Yeah. So, I mean, that was 2007, 2008, like,
Yes.
right? But one of the properties that we went to was people were squatting in the property, which we did not know, obviously. And we went to go in, and all of a sudden there's like, it was like a clown car, but they were going out the like skinny windows in the basement, like the basement windows, and one of the guys got stuck, which then one of the people who was on the tour with us like had to help get this guy unstuck, which meant going into the basement, which is where they had pickle buckets for toilets. So the smell factor, that was an interesting one. We did rescue that poor gentleman who probably shouldn't have been squatting. And then there was another one that we went into that was occupied. It was not a foreclosure. And there was just drugs everywhere, like out in the open, all over everything. So all of a sudden you're like, okay, all right, don't touch anything. And we go to the basement. It was an assisted showing. So the listing agent was there. We go into the basement, and all of the doors are cut. So they close, but the top open,
Oh, yes.
like
Oh,
farm door.
the farm-
Yeah. So I'm just walking, doing my thing, and I go to open a door, and she like panics. The listing agent is like, no, don't open that one. And there was a 6-foot alligator in a bathtub in this room. And then she, alive, that's bigger than me. I don't know if you know that, but like this thing was massive. And she joked that they walk it, that we were up like north of Concord in Tilton's. She's like, oh, they take it to the weirs and walk it on a leash.
Wow.
We didn't even finish looking at the house. My clients were like,
Right. Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
We're going to leave now.
I'll just double up on the animal thing. I showed a house one time where in the dining room they had a caged monkey.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I've not seen.
yeah. I
that.
haven't seen a monkey.
Yeah.
either.
No two transactions are the same.
Yeah.
No,
It's
exactly.
what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Well, that's
She wants
where
crocodile.
there's so many.
Well,
Every
think about how crazy it is. You're walking into a stranger's house.
Yes.
Like you're doing things like you not suggest your kids do.
never tell them.
Oprah would not approve.
But
Like,
just don't do what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask Andrew a question?
I would love you to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So when you talked about growing your business over the past couple of years, you
Mhm.
know, 100%, 100%, have you found that there within that business that there's a couple people that are giving you substantially more business than others, like core advocates, I
Sure.
guess is the point of the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate that I can say most of my roster is that way.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a again a symbiotic relationship and a trust and a loyalty there where it's like and look, at the end of the day, there are a lot of other great photographers around here, and I know many of them. And I often, when I'm busy, I'll refer out and vice versa. And I think it's important for agents to have a depth chart, you know, people who can go and do things because
Yeah.
the way I take photos is going to be different from how somebody else takes photos. It's just, you know, different eye. And there's some people who might like that style more than the other. And at the end of the day, that's totally fine, you know, but I definitely do have, I mean, I just did an agent listing this morning. He's relatively new. He was part-time as an agent for the last, I think, year or 2 years. Now he just stepped into full-time. And I feel fortunate because I've been with him on this sort of growth path from like his first smaller listings. And now this house was this ginormous, beautiful new home. And he's got 5 more coming. And he was like, I'm going to get them all to, you know, like he's enjoyed the fact that we've been helping each other grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Which is the same way that our business in real estate really grows.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
it's relationships, and that's what keeps on coming back around. If you build that relationship, if you build that trust with people, it works,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
and if you are a good person,
Yeah.
right? Like if the combination of that you put yourself in the right places and you do the right thing and you continue working it and not quitting right before you hit that
Mhm.
level. That's the other thing is, right? Everybody works so hard and they don't see it as quickly as they want it and then they quit. But if
Mhm.
you keep up with that,
It takes, and this I'm stealing this from Alex Hormozy, right? It takes a long time to build big stuff, right?
yeah.
So you've got to know that, like, if you want to build a big empire, you want to have a big successful business, it's not going to happen in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. It's going to be 5, 7, 8 before you actually start seeing
Yeah.
the return.
And it does happen. It's gradually, then suddenly.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why, like what Kristi was saying from the beginning, you know, people start building your systems right away.
Right away.
Because you need
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's evolutionary.
I feel like we could talk probably for about 2
Yeah.
more hours and
I
we've
know.
scratched the surface and this almost could be 2 podcasts. But thank you both for
Yeah,
coming. Thank you,
pleasure.
Andrew, for being on the hot seat for a minute. And hopefully will you guys come back some other time?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Great, great. And until our next time, thank you all.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and gained a little insight into the world behind those for sale signs.
Today's episode was brought to you by Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, proudly serving New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. A special thank you to our agents, leadership, and partners at KW Metro for their continued support.
And thanks to you, our amazing listeners and viewers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Leave us a review or comment. We love hearing your feedback, and it helps more people discover the show.
And if you have a real estate story you'd like to share or a question you want answered on a future episode, reach out to us at metro.kw.com or find us on Instagram, handle @KWMetroNH.
Until next time, we'll see you
Behind the Sign.